everything that you've been through and how you've gotten to where you've gotten to in your life. I don't think anybody expects to have children to take this journey that we're taking, and getting up in here and sharing that takes strength and takes courage. And thank you for having us here, and thank you to that music and inspiration. Like, that continues to give me encouragement to do what I do to help bring awareness to the issues that we're discussing today. 6 minutes is really not enough to give you a glimpse of everything that's going on in our lives. Got a lot to get through. So again, I'm Bonnie Zabel. I'm a social and criminal justice reform advocate. I'm the Northern Michigan Regional Coordinator for Nation Outside, which is what got me connected to DAI. We're a voice for the formerly incarcerated, and we change policies around barriers that face for re-entry back into society. I'm a legislative liaison and leadership member for the Voting Access for All Coalition. I'm the Northern Michigan representative for Michigan Justice Advocacy. That is to bring good time back to our incarcerated men and women, because we are currently a state that has truth in sentencing, was just not allow anyone to earn any time off of their minimum sentence. I'm a board member for BDAI and also a board member for the NLA, which is the National Lifers of America. So I am trying to be the voice for those men and women inside the Michigan Department of Corrections. I'm a dedicated volunteer, and I go to Lansing and lobby on these reform efforts with many organizations and different initiatives. And I'm also the founder of the People of Action Coalition. And that mission is to bring awareness for the need for a culture change throughout Michigan by building platforms and alliances throughout the state to bring awareness and integration for much needed reforms. But most importantly, as my two speakers before me, I am the mother of an addicted son with mental illness and has now been 10 years incarcerated. My story started when he was only 16 with incarceration. The nuggets, as I was trying to, as Suzanne pointed out, get to the highlights, which when I went back and looked at them were really low lights, right? Was kind of what you would think would be the average of incarceration, divorced mother and father. He was, as a youth, he was diagnosed with ADHD, so he had reoccurring problems within the school system. 8th grade, he was actually suspended for the last 3 months of school, and all due to his anxiety and depression and ADHD diagnosis. We were working on a bipolar diagnosis as well. During this time, he had some issues with his father, and his father his older brother was no longer seeing his father, and he had taken it upon himself to kind of feel like he was the son, that he had to be there for his dad, and that put extra strain on him. And he just didn't figure out where he belonged at that adolescent age of 14. So he was trying to get on meds. I got him convinced, but dad was not in support of it, so it was something he had to hide from dad. He had to deal with all of that. And he was having adverse effects to the medications. So he actually sat me down, gave me this entire PowerPoint presentation on why he should be smoking marijuana. It was natural. It grew in the ground. It wasn't synthetic. I mean, it was impressive. It really was. So being the mom, I took him to different doctors at 14 trying to get him a green card. I said, you can't break the law, you can change the law. Couldn't get a doctor to prescribe him anything. And he was, of course, like, yeah, right, Mom, like, that law's gonna change. Well, now we know that it has. But that was after his incarceration. So during this time, he did find football. And football became his passion and savior, and was one positive in his life. So both 9th and 10th grade, he had this football. During his junior year, they switched positions on him, and he didn't feel like he was contributing to the team in the way he had the last 2 years. And he quickly became more using of the marijuana to escape from what he felt were his deficiencies. He became very depressed, and during this time he had more issues with his dad, and his dad hit him. And his marijuana use escalated, and his dad told him if he didn't stop using the marijuana, he would be dead to him. That spring, that Christmas break, he continued to use marijuana and refused to go back to school. I called the police. I told them, you're 15, 16. That's your one responsibility in life, right? You have to go to school. So he knew that was the consequence. But what I failed to realize as a parent was my consequence was he ran away. And for a week, I didn't know where he was. And this is when I started to learn that there's really not a whole lot of help for people that are dealing with these type of issues. I went to the school, they couldn't help me. I went to the courts. They said unless he gets in front of a judge, they couldn't help me. So I started praying for something small to happen. Well, I guess I must have prayed really hard, because I got a call on a Sunday morning when I was out to breakfast with friends to say that my son was in the back of a police car being escorted to jail for murder, and he confessed. I didn't know anything for 2 days till I could get to the courthouse and talk to that prosecutor. Come to find out that it was, to give you a little backstory on that, because this is really the nugget of it. That was a Sunday morning, like I said. He had finally told me where he was at. He was staying in an apartment with a young man that I actually took in because he was homeless. And my older boy asked me to take him in, and I did. And it took 3 days for him to convince this younger boy to go out the window in the middle of the night and go into town and cause some havoc. So I told him, I can't have you doing that. And I had to ask him to leave. So his mom got him an apartment. So when my son ran away, he went to that apartment. And he was in there, no adult supervision, a lot of stuff was going on. And that Friday before that Sunday phone call, my son called me and asked me to take him to the doctor because he wasn't feeling well. So I went to that apartment, picked him up, took him to the doctor. He was diagnosed with bronchitis. Begged him to come home. He said no. I took him back to the apartment. Less than a half hour later, he called me again and said, "No, you need to take me to the ER because I broke my finger." Come to find out, someone had stole all of his possessions, which included a large jar of marijuana that he told me I would never know how much money that was. And he lost everything, and now he was suicidal. So I called, asked him to please go to the psych ER, please get seen. He refused. So I had to call for help. An ambulance came. Took us a half an hour to convince him to come out. And by coming out, I mean he scaled down the 3 stories of that apartment building so his friends didn't get into trouble in that apartment, to come out and get in an ambulance and go to the psych ER. His finger was so swollen that he needed that blood to be drained. He had slammed his finger in the drawer in the kitchen where all of the stuff was that got stolen, and he needed to go to the ER. When we got to the ER, he refused treatment on his finger, and I could do nothing about it. They told me he was 16, he was old enough to advocate for himself, but yet also told me in his anger when he was trying to destroy some things in there that I was responsible for whatever he destroyed. But I couldn't get treatment for him because he was saying no. So he finally relented, he had it drained, we went back to the psych. Psych talked with him, talked with us. 2 a.m. they released him. They said he was only angry, and angry people don't hurt themselves or others. And it was that next day that the young man that stole all of his stuff convinced him to go rob a drug dealer to get money back from what he had just lost. And unfortunately, he made the decision to join. And during that, of course, the easy peasy plan that this guy had set up didn't work, and they drove this young man around to do drug deals. And then the man wouldn't give up the money, a fight ensued, and the young man lost his life. So my son at 16 was charged as an adult, faced with felony murder, which we knew nothing about, and that is, there's papers on the back there, that is during the act of a felony, if somebody dies, it doesn't matter how they died or your part in it, it's automatically elevated to first-degree premeditated murder, and it's a mandatory life in Michigan. So this prosecutor chose to charge him as adult, threatened him with a life sentence, and 2 weeks before trial offered up a 32-and-a-half-year plea deal, which my son took because he said, I'm not putting that family through a trial. They've been through enough. And that's what we've been facing. Now let me tell you, the criminal system is not what I thought it was. You know, I was a 40-something mother of two, thought roof over your head, 3 square meals, heat, and it's all good. It's nothing like that. Especially when you're dealing with somebody that has anxiety issues and a violent, overly controlling system, trying to get him to get help. He's anxious and worried. Is it going to be in my file? Is it going to hurt me? The COs use it against you. If you go stand in a med line, they call out your name and make everybody aware that you're on psych meds, and then you get bullied in the unit. If you don't show up to med lines, you get a ticket for being out of place. So he has anxiety that if he doesn't wake up and get his morning med, he's now going to get into trouble. If you actually are substance abuse, which my son has, the drugs are rampant in there. My son has the substance abuse issue inside. They do have programs, but you have to be clean to get on the program. So if you actually ask for help, you want genuine help to get off of your addiction, you have to test clean before they can actually give you the substance that's supposed to help you get off. If you don't test clean, you get a substance abuse ticket. So they punish you for asking for help. If you get 2 substance abuse tickets, you lose your visits. Unfortunately, that happened to my son, and I didn't get to see him for 5 years. What do you think that did to his mental capacity in there, that he had no contact with us other than phone calls for 5 years? Our system is not set up to help and encourage, and as these ladies said, we need more on the front end so that incarceration is not the answer. I had him, I don't know if he put up pictures, I wasn't paying attention. I just told him to just go around with them, but let me find my pages here. I brought some stats, I'm a stat girl, so. This is directly off of the NAMI website. And I send them to him, so if anybody wants them, you can go to the website or he can email them to you. So about 2 million times a year, people with serious mental illness are booked into jails. Nearly 1 in 4 people are shot and killed by police officers between 2015 and 2020, and they had a mental health condition. About 2 in 5 people who are incarcerated have a history of mental illness. Suicide is the leading cause of death for people held in local jails. 66% of our women in prison reported having a history of mental illness, twice the percentage of our men in prison. And over 4,000 people with serious mental illnesses are held in solitary confinement. My son cries anytime he thinks that there's an issue that's going to take him to solitary confinement. Not exactly sure, he hasn't told me what happened in there, but I know something that he doesn't want to go back ever to solitary confinement. 1 in 4 people with serious mental illnesses have been arrested by the police at some point in their lifetime, leading to over 2 million jail bookings of people with serious mental illnesses each year. 2 in 5 adults in jail and prison have a history of mental health, and 7 out of 10 youths in the juvenile justice system have a mental health condition. NAMI believes that people with mental illness deserve help, not handcuffs. Yet people with mental illness are overrepresented in our national jails and prisons. This is what we're here trying to fight for and bring awareness to. I've got more information on the tables back there. I advocate for, there's a bill right now for second chances to end juvenile life without parole, and that would change it to a term of 10 to 60 years. So our juveniles have a chance, was my son there? Absolutely. I have said from the very beginning, this prosecutor charged him with felony murder, but looked right at us and said, your son was not part of the plan. He had no intent to harm. He didn't have any malice in his heart, but he was there and somebody died, so I can and I will. I'm going to charge him as an adult and I'm going to give him a life sentence. That shouldn't be happening. He said, without felony murder, I don't even know if I could get manslaughter. That's a 2 to 15. That's what my son's part in that happening was. So to bring awareness to all of this and have you guys be a part of the action. There's a call to action sheet back there. If you agree with that and you want to be a part, contact your legislators. Let them know we want to make a difference and we're here to help. And thank you so much for being here and opening your hearts and hearing our voices today and being here to create a change. Thank you so much. With that, I want to bring Tony back up.